So here we are at the very last sections of the list, sections 25, 26, 27, and 28. Starting with section 25, segment, publish, activation, and activation targets, including creating a data cloud object from a segment when data cloud is the activation target. What is activation? It's the process that publishes a segment to an activation platform or target. The activation target is the location, including authentication and authorization information, where a segment's data is being sent to during activation, for example, Marketing Cloud. Activation membership. This is the grouping of fields from different data model objects to include in an activation. So this is a tricky term, activation membership. I would have thought that would be the segment, the audience, the people, the records that are included in the activation, but this is saying that is not what activation membership means. It's referring to the fields that are being sent over to the target. That's activation membership, as opposed to audience, which is a marketing term that refers to the collection of individuals and their data that can be used for various purposes at the activation target site, like Marketing Cloud. So similar to a segment. The endpoint is any final system where customer data is sent to, which is usually where that data is used for targeting. Common endpoints include Facebook and other social media platforms, Marketing Cloud, Interaction Studio, demand-side platforms, and so on. And the entity path is when you're activating a segment, after choosing the activation membership, which remember is the fields to be activated to the target, specify the entity path. So in other words, is the value coming from the account, or maybe the value is coming from the parent account? That's the entity path. Data action. This is a process that triggers an action based on data received from a streaming insight. Data actions require data action targets. Data action target, a record that stores authentication and authorization information for a given platform. Supported targets include webhooks and Salesforce CRM. So we're talking about streaming insights, which we talked about in a previous section before segmentation. Remember, we had calculated insights and then we had streaming insights. So data actions are pertaining to these streaming insights where the data is streaming in, the streaming insight is monitoring for certain kinds of activity and then taking some kind of action. So this is the data action, and where is it taking that action is the target. One of those targets was webhook. So what's webhook? This is a type of API, application programmer interface, that allows web applications to communicate with each other based on events versus requests. A webhook in web development is a method of augmenting or altering the behavior of a web page or web application with custom callbacks. Webhook can be used as data action targets. When it comes to bring your own lake, data shares, and external objects, we're talking about not ingesting data from a data lake, leaving it where it is in the data lake, pointing to that data, and then we can look at it inside Data Cloud, manipulate it, and share back to an external activation target. So an activation target that publishes segments to an external activation platform account, including platforms installed from AppExchange and Google Ads, Meta, or Amazon Ads platforms. Not a great definition. And then external data lake objects are a storage container with metadata for the data federated from an external data source. An external DLO acts as a reference pointing to the data physically stored in an external data source. So here's the definition of data federation. Data federation in Data Cloud allows you to set up connectivity with external data sources and consume data without copying it into Data Cloud. You create and deploy a data stream That in turn creates an external data lake object. The DLO acts as a reference and points to the data physically stored in an external data source. And then we have data share, a collection of data lake objects, data model objects, and calculated insight objects that lets you make queries without moving any data out of data cloud. So you create a shared target, for example, to Snowflake, to make the data available as a virtual warehouse. And you can do a query without copying or ETL. And the very, very last term in the list, it's not in the official glossary, but it did come up in the learning materials, so DBeaver. It's a database management tool and SQL client software application for developers, database administrators, SQL programmers, and analysts. It's available as a free open source community version and as a paid enterprise edition. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the terminology videos. Thanks for hanging in there all this time.